I am ready.
Welcome to the latest BuffZone podcast, and please be joined once again by my colleague Pat Rooney. And Pat, how you doing?
Brian, always good to see your face. Doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, and we're going to get into some football. Obviously, another rivalry week, but we'll also talk about what's going on in the other sports uh, uh, this week at CU, including a very disappointing loss for the volleyball team that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But let's start with football. And I don't want to spend too much time, rehashing Nebraska, but we haven't done one of these since then. And just overall, any final thoughts before we move on to Colorado State?
Yeah, I just again was surprised just how overmatched they looked from the get go, and how and Coach Sanders talked to this point that they really didn't kind of step up to the moment in that game. I didn't think that part of the equation would be a problem for this team. I didn't know that they'd win every game. I picked Nebraska to win. I thought it would be a close game and the team would perform well. And none of it happened. They were kind of beaten right out of the gate, and it was never a close game after that. We've both written about it. Same old problems as last year up front. Defense got a little better in the second half, but it was also, at that point still a 4-score then 3-score game. So we'll see how they respond this week. It'll be another tough atmosphere at Colorado State, and to me that's maybe the most alarming takeaway. I thought it'd be a close game. I thought they would play well. I didn't think they'd necessarily win, but I didn't think that they would come in and kind of be so overwhelmed by the atmosphere and by Nebraska.
That's the biggest thing that surprised me was the fact that and I discounted that too much, in hindsight, and discounted how much I know it's a cliche and I've been saying it this week, but like and a lot of times I don't like this in sports, but I think Nebraska wanted that game more than Colorado did. I think it meant more to them. They were coming off 3 straight losses to their rivals, and the atmosphere there was the best I think I've ever seen at a college football game. It was pretty awesome. Colorado State's gonna be nothing like that. That's gonna help the Buffs. It's somewhat of a hostile environment, but it's not even half the number of people. And I'm guessing a third of it's going to be CU fans, so it won't be quite as bad. But that surprised me. I agree with you. I didn't think that they would have a problem answering the bell. And I don't think like a Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. I don't think those guys. Cam Sumlin, Craig. I don't think those guys did. But as a collective team, they did,
Yeah.
and that's what really surprised me. And you know. I did like the way the defense played. I'm not discounting of their second half. I think Nebraska would have loved to have thrown 70 points on them if they could, but I think the defense did a nice job, and I like what Robert Livingston has done so far. That they've played pretty solid football for the most part, first 2 games. But man, if that offense would have got going at all the other night, Colorado could have won that football game, but they couldn't do anything.
Well, and then turning to this week at Colorado State, obviously the big question: can they get a
Mhm.
run game going? Are they really going to try to get a run game going? Now Dalen Hayden is out for this week. Sounds like there's going to be some shuffling on the offensive line, which you just wrote about. Folks can check out Brian's latest. But how does it get going? And will an offensive line shakeup get the job done? And if they do actually make an effort, who's getting the ball?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Offensive line, first off, let's go there because it looks like, um, Coach Prime was asked about Tyler Johnson, the Houston transfer, who's got a ton of experience the other day at the press conference. It was a good question about Tyler. But if you watch the well off videos, there's one where Deion Sanders, I think it was on Tuesday, said, starting offensive line, come up here. And it was not Tyler Johnson and it was not Justin Mayers, but Philip Houston, the who played for Mike McIntyre at Florida International last year as a right tackle that came up. And so looking at some of the videos, it looks like they're moving Tyler Brown from right tackle to left guard and moving Justin Mayers out of the starting lineup and putting Philip Houston at right tackle. Um, hey, a change needs to be made, and we'll see if this is the right one or not. Love Tyler Brown. He's a great kid. I think he's a good player. He has looked lost at right tackle, and I think that's a good move to start with and see if that can maybe spark some things. I think Tyler can be a really good guard, and I like the move there. I didn't think Justin Mayers was playing poorly, but we'll see.
You and I were talking the other day, and you brought up a point. I'm going to put you on the spot here to bring it up again because I thought it was a good point and one I hadn't really considered. But see, under Deion Sanders, they've basically kind of done the cross training approach with their offensive linemen, in that they are learning different positions. The idea of multiple guys playing multiple positions, which is a great idea, but none of these guys have really. This is going back to last year. It's not just these guys. No one has really seemed to kind of say that they've mastered their own position. So it kind of
Yeah,
makes versatility. It throws it out the window if you're not kind of efficient at it in
right.
the first place. So Tyler Brown, he played guard at Grambling State. Khalil Benson played tackle at Indiana. If they're reversed out of the gate here, these first couple games of the season, do you think there's something to be said? Do you think maybe this would be better off if, like, hey, these guys can focus on this spot, focus on learning this job, seeing if they can get that done, and then if you need some versatility, you can work on it then.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go back and listen to the comments that were made about that by Coach Prime, by Phil Loholt, whatever, and it made sense. That they're cross training just in case things happen. You have to shuffle things around. I get it, but at the same time, what if things don't happen? And what if Jordan Seaton, who's your left tackle, he spent some time at practice at right tackle. Okay, does that help him if he's your starting left tackle? Tyler Brown playing three different positions, has that helped him? Especially if he's playing tackle for the first time ever. So yeah, I think and I've thought about it because the line has struggled. That, like, did they do a disservice to those guys by not doing that? And I think there's some veterans you can do that with, but when it's a brand new line that's never played together, never played one game together before this year, and there's no two guys that have played together, I think you got to get good as a collective unit being in those spots. And I chatted with Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, who's actually doing the game for CBS this week. And I asked him about that. And he goes, yeah, he goes, that doesn't make sense. I don't know why they would do that. Especially with all the lack of continuity, you would think they would want to just establish that. I like the cross training for guys 6 through 10 in
Yeah,
hindsight. 1 through 5, get good at what you want to do.
yeah.
And maybe I hope that that's what they're doing going forward. I think those guys need some work at it. But now, and once again, you've got Tyler Brown back over in a different position than what he's played for the last month. So it's going to be interesting to see if this line can actually get it together and be, a quality line the rest of the year.
For argument's sake, let's say they do against a Colorado State team that you feel like if you can get a run game going, this should be one an opponent you can do that against.
Yeah.
Who's going to, I guess, first of all, do you think that'll happen? Because once again, this past week, leading into Nebraska, we heard all about getting the run game going. And just, quite simply, they didn't do it. They didn't come and do it out of the chute. They didn't do it until it was 4th and 2, and everyone in the world saw it coming. Uh, do they make an effort? We can talk about who might get the carries in a minute with Dalen Hayden now, but will there be an effort? Because I wrote about it, a couple times in the columns, the post game and the 3 points column that comes out on Mondays. The effort to make a running game happen just hasn't been there. It's almost the same as last year in that regard.
Yeah. Well, the effort hasn't been there for 14 games. And,
Yeah,
I go back to there's one time in the 14 games with Coach Prime that a single running back has had more than 13 carries in the game. And Anthony Hankerson it was 16, I think, against USC last year for 74 yards and a touchdown. I'll take that. That's a pretty solid game, right?
yeah,
But they're not allowing anybody to get in a rhythm. And for the most part, guys don't even have 10 carries in a game. I mean, Dallin Hayden has the season high this year at 9 against North Dakota State. And so, yeah, the commitment's not there. And I tried to ask Coach Prime about that this week, and there's some sort of disconnect between he continues to say, we have got to run the football. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. But then it doesn't happen. And I asked him about that this week, and he goes, well, look, you got to do what the game dictates. Like, no, no, no. The offense needs to dictate, right?
yeah.
And he continues to talk about, he'll say, well, on some of those 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts, we committed to it. That's not committing to the run. Just because you call
Yeah.
the play is not committing to the run. committing to the run is, let's start doing it from the get-go, and let's let's show that we're going to run the football and that we know that it's important to run the football. When four possessions into that game against Nebraska, they called one running play, and it was a 4th and 1 to your smallest running back.
Yeah.
That's not being committed to the run.
And to the point about the game dictates. I mean, I get that to a point, but the first series was the opening series. You got the ball into 21. Had the pass batted down, then you had the drop pass. I wrote about this week. But if you run the ball there, I mean, what's the game situation? You can't run the ball on either of those downs. It's the opening series of the game.
Yeah.
The next time you get the ball, it's a first down at the Nebraska 37. You have a little more room, even more room to operate. You're closer to midfield. Why can't you run it on first down? Instead, you get sacked and you're playing kind of behind the count from the get-go. So this idea that this game situation just made it imperative that they had to throw the ball in those first two series just isn't true.
Well, he's also talking about like the fronts. When they're in a 5-man front, they're loading up the box. You can't run the ball. It's like, really? Because nobody's ever run the ball against a 5-man front or a heavy box. Like, you're telling me that your guys, your offensive linemen, yeah, I would be offended if I was offensive lineman. You're saying I can't block these guys, and so you've got to do it anyway. I just think you have to do it anyway, and you have to accept that. Yeah, we might get 1, 2, 3 yards and punt, whatever. But putting it in Shedeur Sanders' hands, you had 0 points at halftime, so you can't get any worse anyway. So I think you still have to commit to it and show you're willing to do it. It opens up so many things if you're showing you're willing to run the football. Now all of a sudden they have to respect the play action. And there's also
Right.
get creative with some run plays against a 5-man front. You can't tell me I'm not a genius with it. I don't know the total answer, but I guarantee you there are teams that have been successful gaining yards on the ground against 5-man fronts.
Well, and to your point, you have to try sometime, and not all
Yeah.
those plays were extra loaded up front in the box defensively for Nebraska. So,
Right.
um,
They were rushing 3 most of the night.
yeah, right. Um, so Dalen Hayden out this week, though.
Yeah.
Let's say they do come out trying to run the ball. What's that going to look like? Are we going to feeding Charlie Offerdahl, or might this be a time some of those youngsters get a chance to show what they can do?
Well, first off, we never answered the question, will they? And I think we don't know the answer. So
Yeah.
let's just assume
For
they
argument's
will.
for argument's sake, let's say there's a run play at some point in the game.
Right.
Who's getting the ball?
You know, I I don't want to totally jump off the Charlie Offerdahl train here because I understand why he's playing. I mean, you look at, and again, we've talked about it on other places as well, but like take PFF grades with a grain of salt, whatever they're worth.
Yeah.
But if you look at them right now, their highest rated pass blocker is Charlie Offerdahl. Their lowest rated pass blocker is Dallin Hayden. So I get it. That's probably why he's in there because they pass all the time. But as far as running the football, I loved what I saw. I know it was 2 carries in garbage time. I loved what I saw from Isaiah Augustave last week in 2 carries, both 3rd and short that they failed every other time that night, and he gets them both times. He's their biggest back, and he got 3 yards on 3rd and 1 a couple times. So I like that. I'd like to see him more. Micah Welch, Coach Prime continues to tell us he's this tough runner. I want to see him. Let's see him in a game. I mean, if you
They
want to
could use a tough runner.
if you want to get the run game going, wouldn't a tough runner kind of be like the guy you want to do that with? So I'd like to see Michael Welch. Brandon Hood, he's got some speed. I'd probably rather see Arfordall right now before Brandon Hood. But I'd like to see Augustave and Michael Welch and throw in some Charlie as well. But I would love to see one of those guys have 15 carries this week.
Well, I said it earlier. This seems like a week if you are going to give the run game a go, and if you're going to have a game where maybe the offensive line can get a little confidence, you would think this can be the week. Now, big rivalry game. First time it's been on campus at Colorado State since 1996. But for those who remember, Hughes Stadium was not exactly on campus.
Right.
I've loved covering games there back in the day. So But looking forward to checking out the stadium this weekend. How do you see this game playing out? The big one's Torrey Horton apparently is going to give it a go after going down late last week. Had a huge game against the Buffs last year at Folsom Field. Brian, what do you think is going to be the story on Saturday?
Well, he better give it a go based off what he said on
Right.
CBS.
Yeah.
You can't talk like that and then not play. Um,
Absolutely.
I will say one going back to the run game real quick as I answer this question is that I do think that if Colorado wanted to, they could put the ball in the air and probably torch these guys. I think that they're CSU. Maybe they'll get to the quarterback. I don't know. They have one sack in 2 games. There's not even a lot of QB hits or pressures if you look at PFF. They haven't really gotten to the quarterback. I think CU could torch them through the pass game. I think it's important for CU to try to get a running game going today or this week. I think this is the week to do it.
Today's good.
Today's good too. They got practice today. Let's do it. I do think CU's better, and they were better last year, and it was a close game. I'm curious to see. I was stunned by the comments by Torrey Horton and Braden Fowler Nicolosi on CBS, and for those that didn't see it, Romy Bean from CBS tweeted out the video, but they basically said we should have murdered these guys last year, and that these guys are more interested in Instagram followers, and that's not going to help them this year. And so, very interesting comments from them. But I think there's a lot of things on paper I look at and say, CU should win this game going away. But it's a rivalry game, and I think that anything can happen. I love CSU's run game. They have one. It looks pretty good. Fowler, Nicolosi, and Horton are pretty good players. Are we doing predictions yet? Should I finish with a prediction?
Lay it on the table, Brian.
I'm going Colorado 38-24. I think CU kind of wins this thing going away and gets back on track.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it'll be a closer game than you said CU going away. I kind of feel like it'll play out a little bit like we talked about the North Dakota State game. I think it'll be a ball game for a while into halftime, into the second half. But I do think it'll be a good day for the offense. Can they come out and torch these guys through the air? Yes. I still would be concerned about Shedeur Sanders taking hits because he always take hits.
Yeah.
That they cleaned it up in the second half against North Dakota State a little bit, but I would still I want to see them get the run game going. Do they need it this week? Not necessarily, but they're going to need it at some point.
Yep.
And they need these guys to get some confidence in it before they get into Big 12 play and just hope it comes along at some point. So I'd like to see that get going. I do think it'll be a close game for a while, and Colorado pulls away late. We had similar thoughts, but a little score discrepancy. I was thinking more along the lines of 35-24 Colorado.
Yeah, I do think, and who knows? I thought Colorado would roll last year, and they didn't. CSU, I think you have to respect the fact this is a rivalry, and they've got them at their place for the first time since '96, and a game that I covered. I realized last night that was the very first college football game I ever covered. Was the Rocky Mountain Showdown in Fort Collins in '96. So I am old.
At Hughes Stadium.
At Hughes Stadium, and the Buffs, kind of rolled in that one. But yeah, I'm old. It's been a long time since I covered that game. So, but yeah, I will say this though: the Buffs better win this game, or this is going to be a really long year. I think that if they don't win this game, I really think the wheels could come off for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. I keep thinking in my head about my preseason prediction column where I said we talked about it on one of our preseason podcasts here. I wouldn't be surprised with 8-4, and I would be with 4-8. And obviously 4-8 is a disappointing season, but nothing in between would surprise me with this team. It's made it so hard to predict. But I think if they lose this game, they could be trending toward that bottoming out situation that obviously no one wants to see. But I think they'll come away with the win. Obviously, superior athletes across the board. It should be a good day for the offense. If it's not, like you said, could be a long season. And I'm, on a personal note, I'm looking forward to seeing this season. I'm sorry, this stadium. I covered a few games at Hughes Stadium way back in the day, going back into the Rocky Mountain News days here. But haven't been to the new one yet. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I actually covered the very first game at Canvas Stadium, CSU against
Yeah.
Oregon State, which is now a future Pac-12 rivalry, as we learned earlier today.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, but I went and covered that one because CU was going to play both those teams, and so and CU was off. I think it was a week 0 game, and so it was an opportunity to go see that. But it was nice then. It's not like an amazing stadium, but it was a nice atmosphere, a nice venue. So I'm looking forward to going back. I can't remember when that was. Was that 2018? I don't remember when that stadium opened, but
Yeah.
it's been a few years now. But I'm looking forward to going back there. And I'm glad that this game is in Fort Collins again. I'm looking forward to it. And it's disappointing. It's the last Rocky Mountain Showdown for 5 years. So I guess we got to soak it up and enjoy it.
Absolutely. I wish the pattern was a little maybe tight. I get not playing every year, but I wish it,
Yeah.
it came around a little more frequently than a 5 year hiatus. So,
I'd
and
like to
home and home,
see. Yeah.
The Denver atmosphere is live. I almost wish they'd do like 3 games at a time, do a Denver game and one on each campus,
Yeah.
then take a little break, and then start the cycle again with 3 games. I don't know if folks like committing to 3 game commitments like that anymore. But I like Denver too. I really like it on campus though, and definitely looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah, I actually had not thought of it like that way, but I like that idea. I was thinking 2 years, 2 years on, 2 years off, always at campus. But I actually like that idea of do 3 years on, 2 years off, 3 years on, 2 years off, and do Fort Collins, Boulder, Denver. I like that. So good idea, Pat.
Yeah, I have one once every so often. A little
That's the
light
first
bulb
one I
goes
remember
on.
from you in a very long time. Uh, real quick, let's talk about the other sports. Starting
Yeah.
with volleyball. The night before we did this, the Buffs. Uh, I don't follow as closely as you, but to me, it looks like pretty disappointing loss to UNC at home, right?
It was a tough one for sure. UNC is pretty good. I don't want to take credit away from them. That's a very good team that they have in there up there in Greeley. But you expect to win those at home if you're the Buffaloes. It is still a young team. They've played a lot of 5-set matches. Also, the fourth one in 7 games so far. So they're playing a lot of close matches. The one last night, it was all 5 sets were pretty nip and tuck the whole way. And they traded sets the whole way, on and off. So it wasn't like they got rolled out of the gym, but little mistakes here and there are hurting the team. But I think that's kind of part of the growing process. They have a really busy kind of opening season schedule. They played at that North Texas invite to start things off. They had a showcase at CU last weekend. They got this Northern Colorado game in, and now they have 3 more at home this weekend. I'll be out there on Friday night when they take on UC Irvine. They've got another former Pac-12 rival in Cal coming in, and it's another 3 games in 3 days situation. By the end of it, they'll have played 9, I believe, 10 games in 17 days. So,
Wow.
and then they got home and home against Colorado State next week. So, not the result they wanted for sure, but maybe expected a couple of these along the way. I would feel good about these if I'm Jesse Mahoney, head coach. I'd feel good that at least like the Northern Colorado, for instance, was a tight battle the whole way. It's not like they're this young group is kind of lost out there or getting rolled, or I would say that they got swept against Miami in the second game of the season, but every single one of the other matches has been highly competitive. So I'd feel pleased about that with the young group. You want to see them keep getting better. So maybe some growing pains out of this loss, but they're kind of really getting trial by fire out of the gate here, playing a lot of games. And looking ahead next week, they get the home and home with Colorado State, and then next Friday will be the one in Boulder. So
Yeah.
a lot of tough games out of the break. And soccer back in action this week in the first Big 12 game. I kind of forgot. I was trying to look this up the other day. I wanted to see what the series record against Kansas State was, and last time they played Kansas State and all that. Well, Kansas State didn't have women's soccer back when we last left the Big 12, but they do now. I think it started in 2016, but that's the Buffs opener Thursday night as we're talking here. Buffs up to 19th in the national rankings. But the Big 12 is not shaping up to be anywhere close to as tough a league as the Pac-12, and kind of really letting that one let it get away against North Carolina State. And then you had a quality opportunity against North Carolina State that was washed out due to weather out there. You got to hope that doesn't kind of come back to bite the team at all. It's a chance to get a quality road result. It's a team that's playing well, but they're not going to have as many of those kind of, what we would call quad one opportunities in basketball
Yeah.
in the Big 12. So they can't stumble. There are two road games out of the gate in the Big 12, and they can't afford to really stumble in any of them. But they get things going against Kansas State on Thursday night.
Awesome. We'll look forward to coverage of that. And Pat, you'll be in Fort Collins. I'll be in Fort Collins, and yeah, we'll see another Rocky Mountain Showdown. So I'll see you this weekend.
Looking forward to being up there with you. Looking forward to the rare road game coverage, and as always, folks, we'll have the coverage this weekend. And thanks for watching and listening.